Hello everyone, welcome to part 23 of this series. Today we're going to improve the behavior of our enemies. We'll fix the wolves attacks as well. Before we start, I would like to thank all of my Patreon supporters for the amazing support. This scene will be made available on Patreon. So we're back in our scene and we're going to start off with the human behavior. And then we'll head over to the wolf as well. And the wolf will have some more drastic changes when it comes to its actual concept. When it comes to the human character, there will be some behavior changes in terms of the behavior graph and a lot of changes when it comes to the actual actions. So let's get started. So we'll head over to the behavior section and we'll open up its behavior graph. So enemy basic 0, 1. And this right now is its current behavior, and we're going to make some changes here. So I'm going to disconnect this one and we're going to be adding a new composite. And yeah, this is the first time I've used an additional selector. I'm just going to remove this one as we'll make too many changes and it's just not useful to have both. And we'll have two tasks. Now I'll explain why as well. There's a good reason for this, and it actually took me quite a long time to figure this out. Now the changes we're making are going to be a bit more drastic. So right now you can see everything is reliant on, can he see the player? We're no longer going to use player anywhere in his behavior graph, and we're all going to tie it to a bool. Now the reason for this is the player is not the only one this human will be fighting. So he'll be fighting wolves, for example, as well. And you can add many more factions into that, and that's kind of the goal, to not limit it just to the player. I'm going to hit play because, as you can see, we can't see the text. And there we go. And I'll back out and our text is visible again. So good tip if you ever have that issue as well. So back to our behavior here. So this condition is going to completely disappear. So we're not going to have a condition here at all. And the reason for that is because it doesn't work properly if we're going to use bools. And it's simply not necessary either, as it is the last one, so there's no condition to trump it over anything else. So it's also just completely unnecessary. So let's go to our preferences, and we need to make sure we have a bool here. Now I have enemy of enemy. I'm going to remove that. I'll just create a new one. And I'm literally even going to name it the same, enemy of enemy. I think it's a nice name. And we'll do game object, tags everything. I'm not really sure the impact of that, but sometimes I've noticed it works better this way. I might be missing out on something, but honestly, it's not really worth looking into if these are the two options anyway. So that's it. Now we have this humans bool here as well, or not bool, variable, and it will work really similarly to this. And the humans bool was for the variable was for the wolf, and this is going to be for the human enemies. And that's that. Now we also need to make sure we have a list variable for that, so let's create one. There we go. And these will be game objects, so we're good there. Let's rename this, and I'm literally just going to use it the same name, enemy of enemy list. And we'll have an empty object here, and we'll drag in our player first, and we'll add in the wolf as well. Where is our wolf? There we go. So we're adding just these two, and now if you're thinking, I'm going to add enemy, characters while spawning, all you really need to do is well, we'll cover that as well later on, but basically on enable, just add them to this list, and that's pretty much it. So depending on the faction they'll be in, on enable, you just add them to to one of the lists. And yes, you'll most likely need to save that list as a prefab, but we'll cover that when we get there. But that's really all there is to it. So back to our actual behavior here. So this selector will have the condition for on site. Can see, there we go. So invoker can see global variable enemy of enemy. So that's the condition, and normally it would just, this would be a condition for the task, but we need to split that up. Now the reason for the split up is simply the drawing of the weapon. So drawing the weapon only needs to occur once, and we can't have it go back to this actual behavior tree to keep calling that, and he'll keep drawing his drawing his sword. So that's why we're splitting it up into 2 tasks. So the first one, allowed to complete, and we'll head over to the actual melee graph and is character armed. There we go. So if the invoker is unarmed, he's going to draw a weapon. Now what I did here, I want to highlight that we're using our main sword. I literally just duplicated that, gave it a different name, and now it's enemy sword. The reason I'm doing that is simply because, I don't want them to, mix up between each other. They're literally the same, it's just a duplicate, so you can, do that yourself. That's it. We're going to wait 0.3 seconds, and then we'll remove it from his spine. So that's something we did before. Attachment, invoker, remove, and spine. Now if you don't remember what this was used for, this was part of the patrol, so the invoker is equipping the sword on his back just like the player is. So that's why we're removing it from his spine here. Then we'll have this task, which is based on the same thing. So is the character armed? So invoker, is he armed? And then yes. Now this will mean that once he's armed, he will always skip this task. This will be the priority anyway, and that's based on the condition. So during his whole, seeing the player, he'll never go back to this task, which is exactly what we need to happen. He should never go back to this if he sees the player, if he's armed. So we won't have that weird thing where he just keeps drawing his sword, for example. Now the actual actions here are going to be a lot shorter than what we were used to. So just change property, invoker can run. So he can run here and execute actions. And these will be the same ones we set up before. We're going to change them, but it will still be the same combat actions as we had before. So when we go to our blackboard, we have combat, patrol. Going to add another one, which will be search, which is, part of this tree, which we didn't set up, and we're going to do that as well. So all of these are going to remain exactly the same. We're not going to change anything here, but we're actually going to create these, as right now this wasn't the case. When it comes to our patrol, we're going to add a couple of things, which I'll explain as well. So right now at the beginning, we're going to have a focus. Melee focus target of the invoker is set to release. Now, as you can see, he's not in focus, and the reason for this, and let me add sheet as well, invoker again. And the reason for these two is simply that once he goes back to patrolling, he'll do these things. Now in the beginning he doesn't have his sword, so he'll literally just skip over these. So, you know, by default nothing will really happen. But one of the big changes here with this behavior is being able to actually get away from your enemy. He'll lose sight of you, he'll lose track of you, and he will actually go back to patrolling. That's the whole thing here, basically. So that's what we want to achieve. We want him to go back to patrolling if he no longer has eyes on you. And that's one of the big changes. So the behavior will actually be quite an improvement. You know, you'll be able to get away from him, hide from him, and once he loses track of you, he'll just go back to patrolling, which is the whole point. But in that case, if he's still armed, we need to make sure that he no longer focuses on you, because you'll get a weird result if he does, and then he actually sheaths his sword again and equips the sword back on his back. So that's what we're really doing here. Cool. So now that that's out of the way, we're actually done with our behavior. And as you can see, it really is that simple. It really is that short. The behavior itself doesn't do much, but we're adding a new level of, well, let's say complexity with using the bool here and having an additional selector. So let's go back to our scene. Now, we'll open up his, I'm going to deactivate the wolf for now because we'll need to test this out first. As you can see, we have a trigger on attribute change, and this is where you could literally do that trick I said. So, you know, trigger, enable, so that's for if they, you know, if you turn them into prefabs and just, you know, add them to the list. I don't know why I mentioned this, but you know, just in case you already want to get ahead and try that out. Anyway, so we have tons of triggers here, and we're going to be adding another trigger, which is going to be the same as the wolf had as well. So, can't remember if it's, yeah, there we go. Group insight. So, the invoker, which is our enemy here, if he sees someone from that list variable group, which is enemy of enemy list, on site he's going to store them in enemy of enemy. So if he sees our player, you know, he'll attack our player. If he sees a wolf, he'll attack the wolf, etc. So yeah, that's that part really. Then we'll head over to our combat and our search. Now I'm going to simply remove these two, and we're going to create new ones just because it's a bit easier to do that. So rename it combat, and I'll just duplicate that and rename this search. There we go. So these will be our new combat and search features basically. And the first combat behavior is going to be incredibly simple, so we'll add those actions. And this will be call conditions. Now, as you might have guessed, we need to create some conditions, and we'll drag them in. Let's make sure he has these new actions as well, so I'm just going to, you know, create them and drag them in. Where is this behavior? So we have combat and we have search. Perfect. So call conditions and wait, which means we need to have some conditions. So these will have two sets of actions really, and the condition here is going to be based on site as well. So if he can see our global variable enemy of enemy, then he'll perform these tasks. If he can no longer see, and obviously he has a cone view, and if you get out of sight, we want to start his behavior again. Or in this case, it will update. So start to update behavior. And what this really means is that if he's no longer in sight, we want him to check everything in the behavior tree again. And considering we're no longer meeting this, this condition, and we're not meeting this condition, he's going to go back to patrolling. And that's really what there is to it. Now, he'll then lose focus, which we still need to set up. And he'll sheath his sword, and he's just going to go back to his original patrol position. So pretty cool. Now, what if he actually does, see our player, or sees the wolf? He's going to follow them, and that's literally all he's going to be doing. He's just going to be following that subject, so whichever it is. Now we're going to change the follow radius a bit as well. It's going to be a bit closer. Now, because he's he's using a sword, it shouldn't be 0. As you remember, the animations are, there's a lot of motion in the animation, so he'll get up close. So we don't want to have 0. He'll need to remain, at a bit of distance, because otherwise he'll just literally walk against the player, which is annoying. But he shouldn't be too close. Now, the reason for that is because we're adding our next step, and this is actually based on what I did in my basic melee video. I'm not sure you've seen that. If you haven't, well, it's worth checking out. Now we'll do that in combat as well. We're going to call this, we can't call it combat again, so let's call it, execute. I had this before, I'm not really sure it's the best name, but that's fine. We're adding a sphere collider here. And I'm going to put that up just a bit. And this is going to be a radius of 2. Now let's make sure gizmos is turned on. And this is going to be a trigger area, and the reason for that is, once you get into this trigger, he's going to be attacking. That's kind of the goal. So trigger and player enter. I'm going to start off with player enter. I know we have to have something for the wolf as well, but I'm first going to test this with the player, and this is just really reliable to use. And then we can mix it up to make sure it also works for the wolf. So I'm going to add some conditions here, and this is going to be another trigger, which will be on player exit, and this will just have a set of actions. Now the conditions for this are going to be based on sight again, and there's a reason for that. So if you can see, because if this is not based on sight, it means you could never sneak up on an enemy. So once you get in that trigger, he'll just start attacking, which is not the point. You should be able to sneak up on him. And this trigger will only actually performs a set of actions if we're actually in sight as well. So I thought it was pretty cool. That way you can still attack from behind, add some sneak actions, animations, combat, whatever you want to call it, in there. So first action here is going to be based on focus. So yeah, I'm not going to be using invoker actually. Let me mix that up, because we're using a trigger enter, so the invoker in this case would actually be the player and would not be the enemy, because because the player is entering the trigger, he's actually the invoker of these actions, which is why it won't work. So we'll need to drag in our enemy here. Need to drag him in again, and he's going to set target again on that global variable. So that's the whole point here, not setting not setting the actual player anywhere. It's all based on variable. And here when it comes to the combat actions, I'm going to be honest, there's a lot more you can do here. These will most likely not be the best set of actions. I'm sure, you can make the actual combat a bit more interesting than this. It's not really about the actual, combat maneuvers. But yeah. Weight 0.5, need to give him a small opening. And oh yeah, this needs to change as well. So again, our character. So he'll do a couple of melee attacks. Weight 0.5, then let's have him block. Again, character. Start blocking. Wait, I don't know, 2 seconds. Stop blocking and again input melee. I'm going to make this a bit longer. Now, the trick here is because it's based on that really small, relatively small radius actually, there's a really big chance this will never actually finish in a, in combat. That's the truth. It will most likely never get to the end of it. And even if it doesn't matter, we'll just, redo it again because the player's still in here. And yeah, we can keep it like this. And that's simply because in combat you'll be moving away a lot. Animations will actually, make you move as well. There's a lot going on in the combat area, and it's yeah, you'll get out of it a lot. So the else conditions are nothing. So if you sneak up behind him and you're in that trigger area, he's not going to do anything at all. Nothing changes. So I wanted to highlight that. Now what you could do, for example, if you are going to add some sneak animations, stealth animations, which I'm considering doing, is on else you could actually trigger a a highlighted button, saying stealth kill or something like that, which is pretty cool. So we're going to go back to our on play or exit, which is these set of actions, and these are going to be relatively simple. They're literally going to be a cancel. They're going to be a cancel of the actions we just created. Not stop immediately. Don't do that. It can get buggy. So yeah, that's that's it. Once we get out of the area, it's going to cancel those actions. So that's it. That's all there is to it. So let's save this now. And if you're thinking this is getting a bit complex when it comes to behavior, trust me, it's not. This is not a complex behavior tree whatsoever. It's all about the right order and making sure it all works properly. It took me quite a while yesterday to actually figure this out. I was having some issues with withdrawing and resheeting the sword, which was quite annoying. Oh, and and before I actually hit play, I'm going to make one change here. So in order to really try this out, because we don't really have, well, there's no cover, there's no building, so he will always be inside. Nothing is obstructing his view, which is problematic, but it's an empty level. So in order to cheat a bit, I'm going to increase player run speed, which is not a bad idea anyway. The default run speed is really, really low, especially considering we do have a walking option, which by default you don't. So, a slightly higher run speed doesn't hurt. And I'm not going to do the same for our enemy here. So he's just going to, retain his default run speed, which is 4. So cool. Let's hit play. And I don't know why, but I turned off user interfaces. Cool. So because of our last video, you know, the intro cinematic were a bit far away, and the minimap is actually going to be useful here, because we'll be able to track the enemy a bit better to see if he's still inside. And what I'm going to do here as well is I'm going to dock this behavior next to it, so we can actually see the behavior tree in action, just to make sure it all works fine. And we're going to be selecting our enemy. So as you can see right now, we see exactly which behavior task is being executed. Let's make sure we get that weapon as well, so we don't actually die straight away. Cool. So let's look him up. We didn't create those search actions, by the way. We still need to do that. So as you can see, this is the behavior that's triggering right now. So let me draw that sword. Oh. So yeah, this is his combat, as you can see. You know, it's combat focused. So I'm going to run away just a bit. So I'll stop here. And as you can see, he's no longer performing those melee actions, which was another annoying thing. So if we're not inside, he's not actually going to melee. Now I'm going to run away like a coward. And as you can see, we're no longer inside, and he's resuming his patrol actions. So let's go to scene view here and actually look him up. And he will go back to his initial patrol area as well, because that patrol area was not a child of the enemy, it was a child of the parents we created. So he's actually going to go back to his original area, to his original post, whatever you want to call it. And there we go. You know, he's going back, he's resuming his patrol. And yeah, that's it. So quite a decent improvement compared to previously. So, you know, one, we have the fact that you can actually get away from him, which is a major change. We have the fact that, you know, once inside, he's not just going to be, you know, flailing around his weapon like a mental person, even though we're not even close to him. So he's only going to actually engage in combat when close. So a pretty decent improvement. Now let's set up those search actions as well, and those search actions are based on getting hit without being in sight. So if we use a bow, which is what we're going to do, let me undock this again. So you know, if we use a bow to hit him from a distance, or magic spell, whatever, and his health is no longer 100, he's going to be searching. Now I'm going to keep the search pretty basic. So let's create some items. So I'm going to be creating 3 markers here. And these markers will be his search area. Now in order to make sure the markers are in the right direction, on hit, he's going to rotate towards our player. Now the great thing is it doesn't matter how he's hit, by what he's hit, because he's losing health, which is the actual condition. This will execute. So it will work by default, no matter if it's the wolf, the player, or anything else really. Now, when we go to our behavior tree, we'll see this, and we need to make sure that if he doesn't see our player, he goes back to patrolling. If he sees our player, then none of the actions matter, because this has the highest priority, being 1. So this will automatically supersede anything we put in search. So that's why search needs to be useful, but at the same time, it doesn't have that much. It shouldn't do that much, because if he sees our player, it's all going to stop anyway. And if he doesn't see our player, well, we just need him to, get back to his life and Stop complaining, basically. So, okay, I'm going to do 5, which is really not that far, but, you know, well, let's do 6, maybe. Which is really not that far, but, you know, keep in mind you have the extent, you know, you have his field of view as well. So he shouldn't be going too far anyway. You know, he's hit, he knows which direction, he doesn't know where you are. Let's rotate this, I don't know, 45 degrees. Let's do, I don't know, 6 here as well. -6 apparently. -6. Rotate this 45 as well, and we'll do 6. And there we go. So this is going to be his search area. So he's going to walk forward, he's going to go here, and then, you know, he'll get back to his life if he doesn't see our player. Now the reason he's also moving to these parts is obviously, you know, the player will move in the meantime, and, you know, he wants to make sure he can still spot him. So the reason we have rotate towards, let's do, well, this is a good one actually, I didn't really think of this. But by default, this is actually tricky. Well, for now I'm just gonna, this is actually really annoying. So for now I'm just going to, yeah, I'm not really sure here. So if we rotate towards our variable, obviously we're not in there. But a wolf can't attack from distance. I don't know. Well, this is actually something I really did not think of at all. Like, not at all. Well, I'm just going to keep it player for now. I know that's not really what it's supposed to be, but the wolf can't hit him from a distance, so I don't know, temporarily this will have to do the trick. The problem is that this variable is not filled in because we're not inside, so there's nothing for him to track in our global variable. So yeah, unfortunately I'll have to keep this to the player. I know it's not ideal, kind of defeats what we were trying to do before, but at the same time, you know, a wolf can't hit him from a distance, so as of now it actually doesn't really make a difference. Going to add a weight, let's say 0.5, shouldn't be too long, and then he's going to be move character. Again, I'm just going to drag in our character here. Going to move to a marker, and these markers are actually childs of this character, meaning, oh, that's an interesting order. Should have been the other way around. But yeah, these are actually children of the character. So, you know, if our player is here, hitting him with a bow from here, he'll rotate towards the player, those markers will move with him, and he'll go that direction, which makes him at least a tiny bit smart. You know, he's not that stupid, and he'll be able to find us. So yeah, it should be 5 first, then 4, again wait 1 second, then 6, wait another second, I don't know, maybe 1 second is a bit little, 2, and then, no, I'm just going to do 1 actually, it shouldn't be too long. And then I'm going to do something which is kind of cheating in a way, but at the same time it's also the only way I thought would actually be fun, and we're going to set his health back to the default value. Now you don't have to do this, obviously, I want to be clear about that, but there's two reasons I'm using this. So one, obviously, will be tied to behavior, because we're no longer meeting this condition, because his health is no longer below 100, and he's going to go back to patrolling. So, really plain and simple, that's, that's part of the reason. So because this condition is no longer met and he hasn't seen our player, he'll go back to his patrol area. Second reason I'm doing this is because I don't think it's fun if you could literally just slowly chip away his health from a distance with a bow, because honestly, there's just no challenge in that. So, it is a personal preference. It's a bit fast as well, but I personally prefer it that way. You don't have to do this, but you'll have to come up with a different way to meet this condition. So basically, I don't know, set a different condition here. But yeah, that's two reasons why I'm using this. And I do think it's more fun gameplay wise. I don't think it's really much of a challenge if you can just slowly kill your targets like this. I don't think that's fun, but yeah. So that's it when it comes to his search, and we're going to try this as well. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dock the behavior here, just so we have enough space. I see I forgot to turn on user interfaces, and I'm going to be selecting our enemy here. So I want to make sure we're actually executing the search actions, so that's why I'm I'm docking this. And I'm honestly horrible using that bow, and I don't really have the correct movement set up either, so yeah, that's going to be fun. So I'm literally going to wait until he walks in the line, if he does. Okay. Going to run away real fast. And as you can see now, he's performing his search actions, and I don't know if we have enough time to still check him. No, it's already... Well, that was a really short search, so maybe, expand the wait time a tiny bit. But yeah, he didn't see us in the meantime, and he went back to patrolling. Now let's see what happens if he does see us in the meantime, just to double check. I mean, I know it's gonna work, but it doesn't hurt to try, right? And I'm going to be, oh, why did I unequip that? I'm going to be moving close, but, oh wow, I really suck at this. Well, that wasn't the best try. So let's try that again. Going to run real fast, and I see yeah, still the user interface is turned off, but that's okay. Let me just quickly pick up that bow and just wait for him, and this time I'm not going to move. I'll remain there, and we'll yeah, well, without user interface not a lot is going to happen. If I open up my inventory, there we go. Yeah, and let's just wait. And yeah, this time I'll remain in the position. Come on, be a better shot. As you can see, he rotates towards us, and now he can see us because we're in sight, and his actual behavior takes over. Combat behavior. So cool. That's that. So that's the enemy. Let me drag this out again. So that's the human enemy. So pretty cool. Works really well in my opinion compared to before. It's it's a decent improvement. So now we're going to get started with our wolf. So now we're continuing with our wolf. And for our wolf, I'm just going to create a completely new behavior simply because we frankly would be altering way too much. It's just easier creating a new one. So game creator, behavior, and it's actually going to be a lot easier. Wolf behavior. It's going to be a lot simpler than what we've used before. So let's open up our wolf behavior and let's drag in wolf behavior. There we go. So this is going to be really quite simple one actually, but better than it was before. Oh, should have had a selector here. There we go. So yeah, this is going to be relatively simple. So we have a allowed to complete condition, which is going to be based on site. So can see, this is going to be linked to the variable we set up previously, so the human variable. So that was all good. When it comes to the actions, it's going to be a lot simpler though. So we literally just have a execute actions and that's it. So these will be a variable, so combat and wait to finish. I'm going to add a property can run, invoker can run, and let's add that before. Now when it comes to our patrol behavior, again, just like with our previous character, there will not be a condition here, so that will all function pretty much the same. And when it comes to, we're also going to do a focus, so invoker release target. So that will be the same as well as you know, with the other one. And other than that, we're just going to execute actions. So variable, invoker, patrol. We already set those up, obviously, so we're not going to create new ones here. And this is the getting hurt part. So what attribute value of invoker, enemy health, percentage is less or equal to 0.99. So again, really similar. And we're going to do the same weight, 0.5, rotate. And yeah, this is the annoying part. Again, I'm just going to refer to player. Enemies are not using a bow, and this is something I'll need to set up later, unfortunately. Or we can just do execute actions actually. Let's just really keep it exactly the same. So variable, invoker, search, and let's copy over that can run. We'll just keep it exactly the same. We're not going to mess around too much. So yeah, that's it. Really simple. Not much to it, but it's definitely going to be an improvement over what we had before. So don't worry about the simplicity. It's going to work. Let's add those variables. So combat, search, and patrol, and game object. Cool. I'm going to save this and we'll go back. So first change, we still have all of these. Now I'm going to simply remove the existing ones. I'm going to keep patrol the same because patrol was actually completely fine. Patrol is great even, so we'll keep that the same and we'll just create some new ones here. So you know what, I'm not even going to create new ones. I'm literally going to make things slightly easier, and I'm going to copy over the combat and search of our human enemy. And yes, we'll need to make some changes, but a lot of it will actually be really similar. Let's make sure these are all you know, on him. So yeah, a lot of this will actually be the same as for the human. Not everything though. So let's start off with the search, simply because that's slightly easier. So we'll need to drag in our wolf, of course. Target, yeah, player, unfortunately. We'll We'll need to come up with something better. Now, he's going to be referring to these markers as well, which is great. So we're all good there. And just make sure we drag in the wolf everywhere. Wolf, wolf, and wolf. And then we're going to do the same, set his attribute value back to 100. And yeah, that's it. Those are our search actions all set up. Perfect. So our combat actions are going to be calling for conditions as well. So again, really similar, not all that different. And when I say not all that different, I mean exactly the same. So we have can see. Now this is going to be the human list instead. And we're going to be following humans. Cool. All going to be the same. Now start to update behavior. That is going to be different. Obviously, that's going to be the wolf's behavior. We're starting and updating. And yeah, pretty cool. And yeah, that's it. I mean, this is not all that different. Now, I'll keep this the same for now. I'll most likely need to change that, obviously, because the wolf body is really different than a human body. So this radius might not behave the way I want it to. So we'll have to try that out. I'm not really sure about that, in all honesty. But yeah, we'll try that out. I think this might be a bit much. He needs to be a bit closer, obviously, because he doesn't have a weapon. So anyway, I'll try this and we'll see if it's good enough. So on execute, we have our triggers. So I'm going to keep this the same for now because I'll just try it out. I'm going to make this 1.5 a bit smaller because, again, like I mentioned, there's no actual sword here. And execute conditions now all need to be set to wolf. So wolf, can he see our human variable? And did I do that previously? Yeah, it's a human variable. That's okay. So can he see humans? Now we're going to be removing all these actions. All of them, literally. And this is canceling the correct actions as well. So we're quite good there. That's really nice. And yeah, the reason we were removing everything else here is because we're going to be adding a couple of different things. So we won't really be using the melee module. We will in some degree. So one action that will be the same is going to be focus. So our character, our wolf, is going to be setting a target on on humans. So that's going to be the same. So that's not going to be any different. But other than that, there's not really going to be anything similar. So what we're going to create for our wolf here is going to be a 3D object, sphere. We'll call this wolf slap trigger. There we go. I'm going to put this all 0, 0, 0. Because I'll turn it into a prefab. It's just more convenient, really. There we go. Now I'll also need something else, which is a state asset. So character simple state. And call this wolf slap state. There we go. Now the animation clip here will be, I don't know, wolf attack. There we go. And this one lasts how long? 1.8. Okay, that's quite a long animation, but that's okay. That's fine. So yeah, let's go back to our actions. And before we get back to our actions, actually, we're going to find the right place. Now, I already found it, as we can see before, but I'll collapse it. I'll collapse it all so you can actually find it as well. There we go. So on our wolf, we're going to be dragging in that prefab we created. And the reason for that is because, unlike my basic melee, we can't attach instantiated basically to a body part, because this is not a human body. So this is a generic body like all animals, and it doesn't allow us to instantiate to the right place. Unfortunately, it's just not possible. So what we need to do is we need to find the right foot. And yeah, okay, I'll collapse it again so you can see it, but right foot, right, and then we have foot. And as you can see, you know, once we select it, we will find the correct joint, which is perfect. And I'm actually going to use this, as it's the other one's really low, and you know, his foot is not going to get that high. So what we're going to do here is we're going to find that prefab we just made, wolf slap, there we go. And we're going to drag it on his right foot. As you can see, this is quite the sphere, but it needs to be quite big, honestly, because otherwise it will just be really hard to detect a hitbox. Now we have our sphere collider here. We can now turn off the mesh renderer. We don't no longer need that. And what are we going to call this? So let's add a tag. I don't know, wolf slap. There we go. So yeah, this will have a wolf slap. Yeah, let's apply this all. There we go. So this will be our trigger. Now the reason I really needed to attach it to a body part is simply the fact that, you know, while he's animating, we really need to add it to the joint so it actually moves along, and you know, it actually looks fine. So yeah, I accidentally started a different program, which is interesting. So on actions, what we are going to do is rather simple. So we're going to activate this one I just literally hit away. So we're going to activate this. I'm going to turn this off right now. And then in the actions, we're going to change state, character, wolf. Let's drag in that wolf slap state. There we go. And now we need to add a weight, and this is for the length of the animation. I'm going to do 1.8. Seems a bit long, but that's, you know, fine, whatever. We'll copy this over, turn it off, copy this over, and hit reset. Let's collapse all of this. So we are using melee focus simply because it's great. We are activating the object, you know, which is his attack trigger, and it will only be active during his animation, and then it will be turned off. Now we need to add a weight here. This is the, you know, amount opening he has basically. So let's do, I don't know, 2 seconds is maybe a bit much. 1.5, that's fine. And then we are going to restart. Now I'm going to copy over this reset state, because unlike melee, once we get out of the box, we also need to reset his state, because you know, with the human, we were just using the melee module for everything. We're not doing that now, we're literally creating new states, so we do need to reset it once we're out of that box. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Now let's try this out. I'm going to make sure our enemy is turned off. I want to try it on us, and we're going to well, we're going to engage in some combat here. Now I'm still a bit far, but it should be fine. And I'm not going to try out the surge, etc. We all know that works. That was just literally copied over, so we're good there. But I'm just going to see if his combat actually works. And there he is, he's attacking us, and oh, he's getting really up close. So he's getting really up close. So there we have our first little issue. He's getting way too close. So yeah, we'll need to change that. It's quite annoying actually. Where is he? And he's letting go of us real fast as well, which is obviously not supposed to be happening, so we'll need to check that out. Pretty sure the focus is wrong. Okay, so we'll try it. We'll fix those things. So what is wrong with the way we set him up? So he's setting his target just fine. It's not really a problem here. We still have our character melee, so we should be good here. So yeah, all of this is working completely fine, so I'm not really sure why this isn't performing as it should, to be completely honest. So let's try this again, and let's just see where it's getting stuck, because I'm pretty sure everything is honestly set up the way it should. We know he's following, we know he's attacking, but then he's stopping. So with set target, honestly, that shouldn't really be happening. Wow, his field of view is really small. And yeah, this is where it's going wrong. So as we can see, he's getting really up close. He's getting a bit too close, and it might be that we're literally losing field of view here, because he's getting so close. So we'll try to see if we can keep that a bit further. So yeah, what we're seeing right now is that this time it is working fine. Obviously we don't have a hit yet, so we'll add that. Let's actually see his in our scene view. Let's focus on our wolf here. So we are getting a bit of a weird animation, and it's because of the blending, so I'll actually remove that from the blending. Yeah, that's a blend effect, because it is kind of a weird animation in all honesty as well. So this is working fine. Our trigger should be more than big enough, so we'll so now that that's set up, what we are going to do is make a couple of small changes just to iron out some of the kinks. So we'll change this reset to 0.05, and the attack was fine actually, so we don't really need to do that. We'll make his follow, where is his follow? We'll make his follow 1.4, just so he's a tiny bit closer, and that's it. Now on our player, what we do need to add though is the trigger for our wolf. attack, and we'll need to do the same. Now we don't need to set up anything different here. So trigger. Tag, enter, wolf slap, and we're not creating new conditions, obviously, as we already have those, or new actions. We're just going to be dragging in the existing ones, life and death, and that's it. On our enemy, we are going to be doing the same thing. So let's turn him back on. And we'll add a trigger. There we go. Let's move this up. So it's with everything else. So yeah, here we have it. Tag, enter, wolf slap. And we're again just going to be adding the same conditions here. So life and death, and we'll do the damage effects rather than the flame effect. And yeah, that's it. Now this will work as well on our enemy, and all we need to do is add those for both the wolf and the other enemy. We need to add some tags as well. Now our enemy doesn't have a tag, so enemy tag, pretty sure you'd have one at least, and the wolf, we're going to use the animal tag. It's fine. So his execute conditions, we have these. So I'm just going to, well, we can actually just, no, our player doesn't have that tag. So on tag, enter, enemy. So wait, this is our wolf? Yeah, this is our wolf. So on tag, enter, enemy, and another trigger, on tag, exit, enemy as well, and we just need some actions. So let's remove these additional conditions we created. These and these. So that's it for our wolf. And for our enemy here, we are going to do the same thing. So combat, execute. Let me just add those triggers straight away. Tag, enter, tag, exit. What is it? Animal. There we go. And again, if you don't have the tags, just add the tags. Let's remove these conditions. And you can use whatever tag you want as long as they are tagged with that object. And conditions and actions. And there we go. So yeah, really took a while to set all of this up, but it is definitely an improvement. For the wolf, he will now actually function the way he should, which is one big difference. And for our enemy, it's just a general improvement on behavior. So he'll be a lot more interesting to fight, or at least engage with. So, bit of a long video. Hope you enjoyed this. In the next one, we'll actually set up a small little village, which will be, or camp, which will be relatively easy to do, and we'll use spawners to actually spawn in multiple enemies, and we can actually start seeing the end of this. So again, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.